So really good to be with all of you. And this is the last of this three-part series. And as David was saying, today we are going to focus on wisdom, on Panna. The proper translation of that is really full or a complete knowing. So hopefully by the end of today, we'll all have complete knowing. That's my hope, my wish for all of us. Um, but I thought maybe like we did last time, I think we started with a sit, and I thought that would be a really nice way to begin to just settle in together, and I'll offer a little bit of guidance that sort of will touch into these three parts of the training, Sila, Samadhi, and Panna, so that we have our own lived experience to explore from. So with that said, coming into a comfortable posture, as comfortable as you can be, and taking your time to settle into your seat, into your body, and really allowing that settling to happen organically, naturally. So if there's a little movement that wants to happen before you come into full stillness, allowing the body to move. And just inviting mindfulness to arrive right here with this present moment. Connecting with something within your present moment awareness that is relatively easy for you to pay attention to. So perhaps it's the felt sense of body sitting. Maybe it's sounds, but just this gentle invitation to arrive little by little into this present moment, finding an easeful access into mindfulness, continuity of mindfulness. Perhaps letting your body breathe a few deeper breaths, focusing on the exhale. And seeing if you can invite your mind to put down all the previous moments leading up to this particular moment. And all the thoughts about all the future moments. Letting yourself arrive right here, right now. Opening to how it is in this moment. For many of us, finding the breath, the rhythm of the breath can be a way to support continuity of mindfulness. And perhaps even a full body breathing, feeling the breath travel out through all the body parts, all the cells, into the toes, into the fingertips. Letting the breath happen naturally, organically. No need to do anything. Also inviting in a quality of kindness, a quality of friendliness with yourself to accompany mindfulness, so that there is a kind awareness connected with what you're paying attention to. Releasing judging, fixing, getting anywhere. but befriending each moment just the way it is, letting it be enough, just the way it is. Or taking a moment to bring to mind your own goodness. Perhaps just that simple dedication to come here and to practice. Can you feel the beauty in that? The preciousness of coming to practice, cultivating your mind, being willing to show up with what's here. Letting yourself feel the goodness of that intention and that action. Even though difficult things might arise in the mind, there might be some resistance in the body and the mind. But connecting with the basic goodness of deciding to practice. Seeing if this reflection can help you arrive even more fully, wholeheartedly into this present moment. Trusting that this inclination to practice is enough. So rare, a very precious thing. And we can gladden our minds that that is available, that that brought you here to this moment. Seeing if there can be a subtle joy of simply being present. no matter what's happening. Can it be a subtle gladness that you're practicing being aware of it? And just like lying on a beach or sitting on a beach and listening to the waves come in on the beach, the rhythmic quality of sound. Being if you can listen to your own experience of body and breath in this same way. Just in a moment, I'll ring the bell. And seeing if you can let mindfulness stay with you as you open your eyes and move your body in just a moment. And they will come back to conversation. I just noticed here at the very end that at some point I had to cough and I put it on mute and then I didn't unmute myself. So you got a lot of just practice time without guidance. Just out of curiosity, I just want to get a sense of how many of you were here last time. If you could put up a hand just so I get a sense of how many of you heard uh, the previous talk. Okay, okay, that's good. It looks to me like it's most of you, but probably not all of you. Um, Last time we talked about this quality of Samadhi, this quality of unification of mind. And we talked about how the ethical attunement, this deep alignment with and dedication to non-harm, becomes a supportive condition for this quality of Samadhi to develop. And if we just think about it, if you think about times when you have lived in alignment with your own values, most of us have a sense of inner peacefulness with that. The Buddha called this freedom from remorse. So when we are living in accordance with what we believe in, when we are acting in ways that are, to the best of our ability, is not harming ourselves or harming other beings, that often supports the mind to let go of some surface agitation. And we won't be perfect at this. So this is part of what we get to see and practice as we come closer to our experience. We get to see how we, even in subtle ways, act and do things, and often towards ourselves, that are harmful, harmful in small ways or harmful in big ways. And so through the practice of meditation, we become much more sensitive to what's the impact of harm, and we begin to release it, not as a top-down, I should be a good person, but as an inner sense of ouch. When I do things that cause inner harm or outer harm, we begin to feel an inner ouch. And from that inner ouch, we let go. So I really love that about the Buddhist teachings, that in some ways there's no shoulds, but there is this invitation for us to sit down and notice our own minds, or walk around the world and notice our own minds, and become aware of where is there an ouch, and trust that if we come close to that ouch, uh, dukkha, suffering, that there's a letting go that can happen just from becoming intimate with this. So there's this whole focus on this ethical training, and part of it, there are some invitations for particular things we can do to engage in ethical ways towards ourselves, towards other beings. But a big part is putting this ethical attunement into action and then seeing for ourselves, what are places where I'm out of alignment with what I believe in, where I say things or do things that cause some kind of regret or remorse, and then letting that sort of be a self-corrective experience through becoming more mindful about how we show up in the world. And with that as a foundation, really the mind has great conditions for the mind to begin to settle when we engage in meditation practice. That the big surface agitation can settle some, and now we are working with more subtle levels of agitation. And some of you may be thinking, oh no, my ethical attunement must be terrible because my mind is so agitated when I sit down. But really not to worry. It's really said that even the act of being interested in meditation, of being willing to sit down to practice, that there's a huge amount of development of this quality of Sila, this ethical attunement, for us to even have that wish and for us to even want to sit down to practice. So we can think about this, if there are so many things in your life that you had regret and remorse around, and really difficult things that you had done, it would be difficult for anyone to sit down and sort of practice with their minds, because all of that would rise to the surface. So it's said that it's really rare that people come to practice, that they come to meditation. And part of it is that there is already this somewhat of a foundation in morality and Sila that makes people want to practice and go deeper and look for a pathway into deeper well-being, into deeper happiness. So we sit down, and what happens is that then there's often quite a lot of agitation that still is there in the mind. The mind is distracted, it's thinking, there might be agitation in the body and the mind. And that's all just part of our practice. It's not wrong that is happening. It's part of bringing our mindfulness to that. And yet the Buddha pointed to the importance of finding a type of practice that can help us settle some of that surface agitation. So finding a way in that doesn't right away get, further agitated by trying to fix, by trying to get rid of, by trying to do something about the agitation that we feel. So we are really invited to take up this practice of Samadhi, of Samatha, of unification of mind. And last time I used the image of a garden, and I said that at some point in my life, I had a very tiny little garden that I was taking care of. And there was lots and lots of weeds in that garden when I took it over. And so it was quite a lot of work to sort of really get rid of all the thistles and all the weeds. But finally I did, and I was able to plant some grass, and then it was a nice garden. And I had a push mower and really had to keep it free of tall grasses. But the thing was that you could only enjoy it for a very brief period of time. Once I had mowed the lawn, after a few days when I came out there and I was stepping around the grass with bare feet, there was the thistles again. So it's the same way with the Samadhi, that the Samadhi in some ways supports us to settle the mind, to settle the surface agitation in the mind. And so it's a little bit like a lawn that still has, the thistles hasn't been uprooted, but the surface is smooth. And in the same way, the Samadhi supports the mind to have less hindrances and more clarity of mind. But it's really the wisdom that we're going to talk about today, this Panna, this seeing things with clarity that can support this seeing how do we get stuck? How does suffering happens? How do we get into tangles? And for us to be seeing that with lots of clarity and be able to really uproot the causes of the suffering. So that's really the work of the wisdom, is now that we have more of this clarity through the Samadhi, this lessening of agitation, that we can take a look at, what are these deeper causes of stress, of suffering, and we can begin little by little to see them with clarity, and then they can be uprooted from the mind. So the Buddha spoke many times of conditionality, how when something is there, something else can arise. When that thing disappears, then that other thing that arose also disappears. So this whole path is about understanding conditionality. And when we practice with ethical attunement, with unification of mind, with the development of insight, of wisdom, it's really understanding, what leads to what, understanding this basic conditionality. That again, the ethical attunement as the first part supports the settling, the unification of mind, which then creates the conditions for us to see things with clarity. And that is mentioned again and again and again in the suttas. So really it is the Buddha's own map of how he discovered freedom. And he's trying to teach us, this is the pathway, this is how I got to freeing my mind, was through this particular map of Sila, Samadhi, and Panna. And that's why it's important for us. I want to talk a little bit about the Four Noble Truths, because that really describes what the work is, and this work of wisdom. What is the work of wisdom? What is the work of that mind that can look directly into our own experience? And what does it see? And how does this development of deepening freedom, how does that happen? I think that's very well described in the Four Noble Truths. So again, just out of curiosity, how many of you know about the Four Noble Truths? And just looking at, looking at the room. Maybe it would be helpful for me to see in the meditation hall, is there anyone who have not yet heard about the Four Noble Truths? Okay. So it will be a review, but again, often a very helpful review. So the first noble truth is really this truth of dukkha, the truth of suffering, the truth of stress, the truth of unsatisfactoriness. This is all different ways that we talk about the truth of dukkha. And it said that dukkha is to be recognized. And I find that really profound. Dukkha is to be recognized. And because we can say, yeah, I know dukkha, I know about dukkha. What's this thing about recognizing it? But actually, if we really was truly recognizing dukkha, it's very likely that we would let go of the causes of the dukkha. So the reason why we're still entangled with dukkha is that we're not really recognizing it. We are seeing through unclarity, and we are seeing that things that lead to stress, we see them as things that might lead to our well-being. And so we really have this misunderstanding. And that's why we say that dukkha is to be recognized as the first noble truth. So it's important to say there's many ways to talk about this dukkha, but one very simple way is to talk about there's two levels of dukkha. There's the dukkha of unpleasantness, and this is the dukkha that there's no amount of meditation that will take away from us. There's no amount of meditation that's going to fix the dukkha of unpleasantness. And for some of us, we might be like, hey, what? This is what I thought this whole path was about getting rid of unpleasantness. But it's very clear in the Buddha's teachings that there is a type of unpleasantness inherent in having a human body and mind that simply will not leave as long as we are in existence. Having a body comes with dukkha. This body will age, this body will get sick, this body will die, this mind will age, this mind will at some point die and decline in the path towards aging. And that's a type of dukkha that's inherent in being human, and a type of dukkha and unpleasantness that we're not gonna fix with meditation. So the second type of dukkha is our resistance to this first type of dukkha. Is this idea that somehow when something unpleasant happens to me, when there's unpleasantness in the body, when there is aging happen, when there's sickness happening to me or to someone else that I care about, that is wrong and it shouldn't be here. And that's so inherent in us. It's so deep in our bones, that first experience that something is wrong, something shouldn't be here when we experience unpleasantness. You can even just think about in your practice how many times there's been some kind of unpleasant sensation, and your first thought might be, why did that happen? What did I eat for breakfast? What did I do right now that caused this unpleasantness in my body? And so we keep searching for what's the cause of this and how can I fix it, basically? How can I get rid of it? So that's that second type of dukkha, the dukkha of the resistance. And that brings us to the second noble truth, which is we must abandon the cause of dukkha, which is craving. So craving and resistance are two sides of the same coin, right? So we crave a more pleasant experience, something that feels more easeful, something that feels more pleasant, a more pleasant body experience, a more pleasant mind experience, a more pleasant life. We keep searching for a more pleasant existence. And as we do that, we resist and push away what's already here. Even when there is something pleasant that arises in our experience, often we crave it right away. I don't know if you've noticed that. When there is, like, let's say, a peaceful moment in your practice, very often right away the mind goes, how do I keep this? This is a good moment. How do I keep having more good moments? Or a more mundane example, we're at a beautiful place, at a beautiful lake. We're looking out on the lake and it's a perfectly beautiful moment. But now our mind starts to think about, how can I come back to this lake next year? Or how can I go to another lake to have more of these beautiful moments? So in that moment, when there's craving arising in connection with something pleasant, in some ways we're out of touch with that particular moment. We're no longer available to just seeing the beautiful lake or feeling the sunshine on our back or having a beautiful conversation with someone else. And we are now in a state of craving, thinking about how can I keep it and how can I secure this, put it in my pocket and have more of these experiences in the future. And in that way, craving and aversion, craving and resistance are really totally two sides of the same coin. When we crave something, there's automatically a resistance to what's here. When we resist something, we are also craving something other than what's here. So that's the second noble truth, that we must abandon the cause of dukkha, which is really this craving. And of course, so there's a typical craving when something is pleasant. There's a typical aversion when something is unpleasant. And then there's the reactive pattern of boredom when something is more neutral to us. So very often, if there is a stretch of time that doesn't evoke strong, pleasant or unpleasant experiences, what often happens is in that moment we tune out. We simply lose our awareness. It has no survival value for us. There's not anything to get, there's nothing to get rid of. And so the mind really tends to tune out and fall into a place of boredom. Nothing is happening here. Why should I pay attention? You know, this is not a very significant or important moment. And so many, many, many moments in life has this very mundane, ordinary neutrality to it. It's neither pleasant nor unpleasant. And very often we're floating along with all these ordinary moments, not really showing up for them, not really giving them a lot of attention. Whereas when something is flashing as pleasant, this is really an amazing moment. Right away, we want to keep it. And when something is unpleasant, how do I get rid of it? How do I avoid this? How do I get back to the pleasant? So the origin of the stress that we feel is this craving that we have for another experience, wanting something better than what's already here. And this is really what causes this amount of dukkha. And so the third noble truth is that the release of craving has to be realized. So I really love this, you know, that because many, many, many times there is actually a letting go of the craving that we're not aware of. Many, many, many times at some point we've been engaged with something, we've been fantasizing about some experience that we want to have. And at some point the mind gets tired of it and it lets go. So we've all had many, many, many moments through our days, you know, in our lives where this release of craving happens. And the thing is, we don't recognize it. We don't recognize that as the end of suffering. That is a small moment of the end of suffering, the third noble truth. That something we have clung to, something we have held on to, something we have wanted, that is let go in a moment. That there is a release of that craving for that particular pleasant experience. I'm trying to think about an example that you might have had. Well, maybe you've had the sense of really wanting to buy something, and your mind has just been thinking about that purchase you're going to make and how wonderful your life is going to be when you own that particular thing, and thinking and thinking and thinking, and you may even have felt into like the dukkha of that, the agitation of that wanting. That there's a particular agitation that comes when we really want something. The mind is not really relaxed. It's in a state of wanting a state of agitation. I want it, I want it, I want it. And that again has its own dukkha. And so you really, really wanted that thing. And for some reason, either it wasn't available, or you let go of it, or you decided, that's not for me. And you may have had that sense of the release that you felt in that moment of the mind putting down that big thing that you really wanted. Is that familiar to people? Have they ever had that experience of just putting down the craving for something? So very often there is a subtle release that we feel in that moment, but that's the moment that we miss, is the sense of relief that we feel. And that's what the Buddha said, that this has to be realized. This is where we want to put our mindfulness. We want to put our mindfulness to that moment when something is let go, and feel, what does that feel like in the mind when I'm no longer in this agitated place of wanting, but my mind has now cooled off and it's in a place of release, a place of letting go. One of the reasons why we often miss this moment of letting go is that often it's not as flashy as a moment of unpleasantness or a moment of pleasantness. It often has much more of a neutrality to it. It's the absence of experience in some ways. So it doesn't have a big neon sign saying, wow, let go just happened, and I feel so amazing. I feel so great. I feel so happy now. It's a very subtle peacefulness, the peace of letting go, that very often is missed because it's so quiet in comparison to the loudness of wanting. And yet, if we keep bringing our mindfulness to the subtle piece of letting go, we really begin to trust that more and more. We begin to see that I'm actually okay when I live from this place of letting go. When the agitation, the wanting to get somewhere really doesn't bring a sense of well-being to my mind. When my mind is much more in a place of letting be, letting go, there's a well-being that really is much more sustainable and is much more conducive to happiness and to well-being in daily life. And so the fourth noble truth is the path, the Eightfold Path, which is to be cultivated. And one way to describe the Eightfold Path is this component of Sila, Samadhi, and Panna that is to be developed for us to really realize the end of craving. And so we realize the end of craving in small ways and in big ways, and in daily life and in meditation practice. And you can probably relate to moments in your meditation practice as well, when you really seen that you were clinging to something, and you saw really the pain of it, the ouch of it, and something in you let go out of that clear seeing. So that's really the deepest type of letting go, happens through the clear seeing into our own experience. Seeing that when we cling to things, it really creates a sense of agitation. And there's a peace that can be had by letting go. There was a time in my life when I really clung to peace of mind, to Samadhi. And I want to share this just as an example of clinging and letting go. Because we come by it honestly. Really, this mind is always looking for happiness. That's why we cling. But because we can't see with clarity, we really try to find happiness in places that can't give us happiness. But it's not that we are bad people, or um, that we are inherently uh, craving beings. Well, maybe we are craving beings, but we're craving because of misunderstanding, because we can't see reality with clarity. So this example was early on in my practice, when the mind had begun in retreat setting to settle some. And when I first came into practice, there was so much agitation in the mind. And so when the mind started to taste just a little bit of settling, a little bit of uh, stillness of mind, the mind really wanted to keep that stillness. And so it did everything to try to keep it, and trying to figure out, like, how did I get to this still place? What did I do to have more quiet in my mind? And so there was this trying to refabricate it, and a deep sense of sadness when it left. The mind was really, where did it go? I had this really good sit and it was so wonderful, and now it's gone, and it must be my fault. There must be something I'm doing that this peace now has left my mind. So just a lot of craving for a settled mind, for a mind that was a little less agitated, and lots of trying to keep it, trying to refabricate it. And I imagine that many of you who have sat retreats, you may have gone through similar territory. Uh, yeah, does that ring a bell for people? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I remember one time, like, really feeling so uh, at a loss, and really feeling so distressed by, not being able to refabricate it. And it came and went, and I just got so frustrated and so agitated that I couldn't keep it. And coming into my teacher at the time, and having a real meltdown. I can't do this practice. I don't know how to keep this samadhi. I don't know how to keep this stillness of mind. There must be something really wrong with my practice that I can't keep it. And she just looked at me kindly, and named that probably there was a little bit of craving going on. And in that moment, really understanding, yeah, this is craving. I'm craving for something that I can't keep, something I can't put in my pocket, something that cannot be controlled. There was a really deep letting go that happened. And really the mind said, I'd rather be well now than try to get to some kind of future result. I'd rather let go in the here and now and be with this agitated mind just the way it is, than to try to create some kind of still mind that's not here this morning, at this moment, a still mind that's less agitated. And then, a very deep letting go happened. And the very interesting thing was that when that deep letting go happened, this willingness to be with the agitated mind just the way it was, then a very deep stillness arose from that. Have you ever had that experience, that you're trying to get to stillness, and the harder you try, the more agitated the mind gets? And sometimes we don't recognize that subtle wanting, some particular experience. Maybe not stillness, maybe it's joy, maybe it's something that's really important for you. And as there's a letting go that happens, because you see it's not working, my craving, my trying to get, really is just creating agitation. And then the agitation is dropped. And then whatever it was that you wished for the most tends to arrive all on its own. And so, we get to really see that, and we get to be aware of that. And when we get to see how did that well-being that I feel now, this deeper peacefulness that I feel now, how did it come about? It came about through ungrasping, through letting go. Then we begin to trust that path of letting go. We begin to do that more and more and release, notice when we're clinging, and release the clinging when we are aware of some kind of holding on. So as we release clinging more and more, actually nothing is lost, but more and more beautiful moments can come our way. This is so counterintuitive. We think we have to grasp with dear life the beautiful moments, the things that we really want, for us to be able to keep them. But what we discover is that the more open-handed we can live in life, living from this place of not grasping, the more beautiful experiences really begin to show up in our own experience. So they're going to be impermanent, right? So one of the reasons why we cling is that we take what's impermanent to be permanent. We think that what we want is permanent, and if I can keep it, then I'll have it forever. And so part of what supports this letting go is that we get to see that beautiful moments are beautiful, and yet they are impermanent. They have a beginning, they have a middle, and they have an end. And when we really begin to understand that, then that supports the letting go, because there's really nothing to keep them. It's like trying to keep a sandcastle. It's a beautiful sandcastle, but it will erode and wash away at some point. And so we cannot hold on to it. We cannot keep it. And when we see that, really the mind can open to the beautiful moments and be much more present with them, because we're not in a place of fixing, of keeping, of trying to own those beautiful moments. So if you think about in your own experience, when you can remember having had beautiful moments, again, maybe, having a conversation with someone that you care about, being on a camping trip, being in the woods, some kind of really important, precious moment for you. Often that beauty was there before the mind came in and said, I want more of this. I want to keep this. So when you had that beautiful moment, likely your mind was just very open and present with that moment without having an agenda around it, but just a simple presence with whatever was happening. And so we learn to live from a place of greater presence, a place of greater openness, letting beautiful moments come and go as they will, not trying to solidify them, not trying to keep them. And this really becomes a place of deepening well-being, of deepening happiness. And when the difficult moments come, when the unpleasant moment comes, we're not confused by them. We're not in an aversive relationship to them. because there is this basic sense that life is going to have unpleasantness. Having a body-mind comes with unpleasant moments. And so there's really nothing to get rid of. And when the mind is not in an agitated, aversive relationship to the unpleasantness, then that second layer of resistance falls away. And then we notice that the unpleasant experiences are also just a wave of experience. They're not solid. And there might be many moments of unpleasantness, perhaps in the body if there's an ill body. But there's still a coming and going of those unpleasant moments. And a lot of what we call pain has to do with how we don't want it and our reactivity in relationship to the pain. And so when that is softened some, painful, unpleasant moments will come and visit us, but they won't be as unpleasant and as painful as they usually are when we are right away thinking this shouldn't be here, this moment shouldn't be here. So that's the path of freedom that the Buddha was talking about. And just to say that these forces of craving and aversion and tuning out delusion are so strong in our minds that they're going to keep arising, right? So I talk about it like, okay, we'll just sit down and then we'll sort of just end this tendency towards craving. But in reality, it will continue for a very, very long time. And it's okay. We have to be very patient and compassionate with those tendencies of mind. And just trust that, that we can let go of more of the surface clinging, but there might be more subtle layers of clinging that we get to see as the mind really begins to develop deepening mindfulness and deepening wisdom. So it's been a pleasure being with all of you, and thank you for showing up, and thanks for your practice. It really is it's a wonderful thing, and yeah, it's a wonderful thing to join and share the Dhamma and hear the questions. And so thank you for inviting me and letting me join your Sangha. Thank you.